You too are part of this sacred space and in this wild world of technology. So welcome into this place where we are honored to be together. So with this great cloud of witnesses, those gathered here, those gathered there, we are indebted to Andy for reminding us of this deep, profound experience of love. This love is the force that we celebrate, this eternal connection into which we are born, with which draws us forward into life and nourishes us into meaningful work and relationships, and finally brings us back to the home, this very source of love and life. So being a minister, I am compelled to read just a tiny little bit of scripture that for me roots this gathering into steadfast love. So a little tiny section of Psalm 36. Your steadfast love, O Lord, extends to the heavens. Your faithfulness to the clouds. Your righteousness is like, right on, man. Your righteousness is like the mighty mountains. Your judgments are like the great deep. You save humans and animals and kids alike. Oh Lord, how precious is your steadfast love, oh God. All people may take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They feast on the abundance of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your delights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light, we see light. Our prayer for Andy and for ourselves is that we all continue to swim and frolic and meditate in that fountain of light, in that river of steadfast love. We know the depths of our love for Andy by the depth of our sense of his loss, and our feelings of emptiness by the fullness of love we have felt in his presence. We are now called into this sacred space to take on the belief that the love that created him, that guided him, that led him into life, that brought him even to his last days, that steadfast love carries on. Its strength is available to us, its power to transform darkness into light, the realities of grief into joy is made real in this gathering, in this place. So thank you for being part of this coming together for Andy and for his family and friends and for this village and for this college that meant so much to Andy Burns. Amen. So I'd like to invite to the podium now Nick Burns.
Thank you. I am Nick, Andy's brother. On behalf of myself and my wife, Susie, my sister, Jane, out in Bellingham, Washington, and her partner, Debbie, Carrie and her husband, Chris, Dave and Lisa, Will and Elizabeth in Boston. Welcome to this celebration of Andy's life. And thanks to Hamilton College for hosting this event, and especially to Sharon Rippey for organizing this wonderful tribute. Thank you, Sharon. There is among us a fourth generation Burns family Hamilton College student. Carrie and Chris's daughter, Sydney Evans, is a freshman. Where is Sydney? Right there, here in Hamilton. Sid, for you, technology has made this big world so much smaller. I mean, you would think Altieri's would limit its pizza delivery to Clinton Clark Mills, New Hartford, Whitesboro, maybe Utica. But no, I find out from their website, we are currently shipping our pizzas and sauce throughout the continental US. I've got kids in Atlanta, LA, Madison, Wisconsin, and any of them can order an Altieri's 3-cheese pizza. 1,000 miles is just a block away. But Sid, our generation, Uncle Andy's generation, like to make small worlds big. And if you had Andy's drive, salesmanship, and love of place, you could do it bigger than anyone thought possible. You see, he made Hamilton College big for Clintonians with his Town Gown Fund. And with his celebration of 100 years of Hamilton College hockey at the Thank You Albert Prettyman weekend in 2018. And did Andy make the village of Clinton big, or what? The National Hockey League's Kraft Hockeyville USA put Clinton at the center of the hockey universe that weekend in 2018. Andy's wife, Julia, has asked me to read for you today 1 Corinthians 13. It's Andy's favorite passage from the Bible. It's about love. You hear it most often at weddings. You usually think it's about love between two people. But as I read today, I ask you to consider love of place, about Andy's love for Clinton and Hamilton College. And acknowledge, if you can, your love of small places, the places close to your heart, like Clinton and Hamilton. Word for Andy. One Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now, we see only a reflection, as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. I would now like to introduce Andy's sons and my wife, Susie. Owen will give us some reflections on his father, and Andrew and Susie will offer 2 more readings. But I must say that before we hear from Owen, you must know that he hit the ball off the 6th hole at the Santa Quada, 285 yards off the tee, right down the pipe, into the wind. One of the nicest tee shots I've ever seen. Owen, you're next, baby.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for letting me speak. I wrote something out. Hopefully it goes well. Let's see. Great moments are born from great opportunities. That was my dad's favorite YouTube video, a 4-year-old doing the Miracle on Ice speech. But I'm here today to tell you that my father's great ideas were born from great faith. A little bit about my relationship with my father. His favorite thing about me was my sobriety. He bought a drill bit and put a hole in every yearly token I'd get from AA and put on his car keys. So I think he'd be honored that I'm going to read from the AA Big Book at his memorial. Here's a quote from Bill Wilson about great ideas and accomplishments. Some of the contemporaries of Columbus thought a round earth preposterous. Others came near putting Galileo to death for his astronomical heresies. Even in the present century, this is an old book, American newspapers were afraid to print an account of the Wright brothers' first successful flight at Kitty Hawk. But the Wright brothers' almost childish faith that they could build a machine which would fly was the mainspring of their accomplishment. Without that, nothing could have happened. Thank God my father was childish. That was the mainspring of his accomplishments. I challenge you all to go out and ask a child what they want to be when they grow up. You might hear an astronaut, the President of the United States, or like Sydney Evans, now a freshman at Hamilton, told me 8 years ago on her front porch, I want to be a pop star, a singer. Children believe in themselves wholeheartedly, and because my father never grew out of his true self that he found at Hamilton, he believed he could accomplish anything. He even named his company after Alexander Hamilton and had dreams of running for president of the United States, he told me. Together, let's imagine the moment Andy read that Clinton's first hockey game took place in 1918 and that Clinton needed to celebrate 100 years of hockey and that this would help Clinton win the upcoming Hockeyville contest. With hardly any evidence to back it up, somehow he knew Clinton could do it. He had that childish faith Bill Wilson talked about in the Wright brothers. Switching gears for a bit, Columbus was cool and all, but didn't the Vikings sail to North America first? I love the show Vikings, so I'm going on that. My father reminds me of Ragnar Lothbrok, a farmer from Norway a long, long time ago. Ragnar, like Andy, sailed west to new kingdoms, kings, queens, and warriors. They were not satisfied with everyday life. They knew there had to be more. Ragnar had to hand select people from his town and give his pitch about his journey, just like my father did with Thank You, Albert Prettyman in 100 Years of Hockey. The Vikings receiving their pitch from Ragnar would say, what is England? Well, in my father's meeting, they would say, who is Albert Prettyman? But they were both million-dollar ideas and both led them to be the hero of their small town. Talking about warriors my dad met, NBC really sent in the cavalry with Jeremy Roenick. I remember talking to my father, calling me and saying, Owen, I got an offer you can't refuse. Can't get this apart. I got an offer you can't refuse. We're going to play golf with Roenick. It was a lot of fun. I believe Roenick was the last person to talk to my father on the phone before he passed. JR said he wished he could clone Andy and put him in different spots all over the world to make life easier for everyone. Another special warrior that came to Clinton because of my father's hard work and adventurous spirit was Artemi Panarin. He makes $13 million a year now playing for the New York Rangers, and he scored a goal in the Clinton Arena. He is currently fighting against corruption in Russia against Vladimir Putin. Because my father's favorite Hamilton fact is that alumnus Francis Baker told Hitler at the 36th Olympics that the United States will always beat Germany, I think he would appreciate Artemi's current struggle. And last but not least, that even the commissioner of the NHL, Gary Bettman, the man who said, Mark Messier, come get the Stanley Cup, I was excited to say that, wrote my father a letter in his last days. And of course, like any good Viking, my father loved treasure, and he helped win a lot for the Clinton Arena and his beloved Hamilton Point clients. But the greatest treasure of all was his family. He would do anything for them, including sacrificing his life for them. My sister Wilton, who was the athlete of our family, he would tell me to come over and poke her muscles to see how strong she was. My mother, Julia, he loved her so much, he allowed his least favorite thing in our house for decades, dogs. If my dad lived in a house with a dog, you can guarantee he was in love with whoever it was that had them. My brother Andrew was his favorite. I remember when Andrew would call, he would tell everyone to be quiet so he could have a clear conversation with Andrew. And with me, he would always give me stuff to carry and joke on me that I was his Sherpa. Family was his real treasure. Andy found true happiness on this earth through family and hard work. Only some of us are so lucky. Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs was recently quoted as simply saying, I was put on this earth to play hockey. My father could probably relate because he was put on this earth to be a Burns in Clinton. It is that simple. If you remember one thing from this speech, be it that, like Babe Ruth, my father had the most home runs, but he also had the most strikeouts. So never let the fear of striking out stop you from dreaming big. We could get into the many things he failed at, but this is his memorial, so we would be nice. As this share winds down, I challenge people to join me in setting their sails to the west, even if everyone is looking to the east, and think, what is the best possible outcome for my life? Let's work towards that, because that's what Andy did. It is sad that a man who helped others plan for retirement never got to have one. So I hope everyone is making sure they enjoy the journey, because life is all about the journey. And the journey is so much sweeter when you set sail for an amazing destination like Andy did. Thank you.
You guys heard about me. Not true, not true. Calm down. So it's an incredible honor to be here in this place, and for all the effort that everybody put together to make this happen. This means the world to us. I think everybody knows we had a private ceremony at our house last year with COVID, with family and some local friends. We said goodbye to our dad, and being here with everybody in Clinton, it just feels like we're saying hello again. So I'm very upset with you guys for trying, because it's contagious. Hello. But at the service, my dad had always talked about having Grateful Dead music at his funeral. And so my friend and I played 4 songs, and all Grateful Dead songs. And so I thought I'd give a little bit of that flavor for this event, and read the lyrics of a song that my Uncle Will included in this beautiful video tribute that you'll hear. If you haven't heard yet, you'll hear it at the end of the sermon. And it's called The Attics of My Life. So, in the attics of my life, full of cloudy dreams unreal, full of tastes no tongue can know, and lights no eyes can see. When there was no ear to hear, you sang to me. I spent my life seeking all that's still unsung, bent my ear to hear the tune, and closed my eyes to see. When there were no strings to play, you played to me. in the book of love's own dream, where all the print is blood, where all the pages are my days, and all the lights grow old. When I had no wings to fly, you flew to me. In the secret space of dreams, where dreaming I lay amazed, the secrets all are told, and the petals all unfold. When there was no dream of mine, you dreamed of me. Thank you.
As I said earlier, I'm Susie. I am Nick's wife, and I am here to represent all the Burns outlaws. Chris and Julia, Lisa, Elizabeth, Debbie, and myself. This is a reading from the book of Sirach. So let us now give praise for an illustrious man. Some people God honored with great glory and were renowned for their strength. Others directed by the people by their advice, by their understanding, and by the wise words of their teaching. Others composed musical melodies, and others set down ballads. Others were rich and powerful, living peacefully in their homes. All these were honored by their contemporaries and were the glory of their day. Some of them left a name behind them so that their praises are still sung, while others have left no memory and disappeared as though they had not existed. They are now as though they had never been, and so too their family after them. But here is an illustrious man whose good life will not be forgotten. His reputation will be passed on to his descendants, and this will be their inheritance. The family continues to keep the covenant and will because of what they have done. His family line will continue, and his glory will not fade. His body will be laid to rest, but his reputation will live forever. The people will proclaim his wisdom, and the assembly will celebrate his praises.
I'm Jack Withy. I'm class of 71. I've known Andy for many years. I actually first met him when we were switching banks down in New York City, and Andy had just graduated and was working at Irving Trust. And I knew the person he was working for, and she introduced me, and that was my first introduction in 1979. Outside of school texts and the borrowed library books my brother, sister, and I might have lying about, there really were no others in my house. Yet there were periodicals. And one I recall vividly was Reader's Digest, which my mom would give to my father every year for Christmas. And I would pick up each issue, leaf through it, maybe read an article or two, maybe none. There's one that I always read, and it was titled My Most Unforgettable Character. I can say with no fear of contradiction that Andy Burns was my most unforgettable character. And I will venture further and say that he may have been yours too. Beyond being an unforgettable character, Andy was frequently my muse. Andy was inspirational in so many ways. We would speak maybe once a month, maybe more frequently, but I knew when that 919 area code popped up on my phone, I was about to hear in detail his latest inspiration. I called him his idea du jour. I treasured those discussions. Not because many of his ideas were doable. You're gonna get some theme here. And he was a dreamer. And hence, many were in fact totally impractical. And who remembers the gondola he envisioned to transport people between the Hill and downtown Clinton? The only problem with my hearing these ideas over the phone was that I couldn't see if he had a twinkle in his eye or perhaps that Cheshire grin of his, so I could determine whether or not he was really being serious or just being as typically mischievous self. I've been sharing too much at the games. I regularly called Andy a nudge, but I meant it and he took it with good-natured humor. Whatever the topic, I knew that Andy had only the best interests of his community and his college at heart. As a townie and Hamilton grad, he was incredibly proud of both. He's proud too of the Burns legacy at Hamilton, continuing now with his niece, Sydney. Without question, I can say that just below the love he had for his family, he loved his alma mater and he loved his town. So many of his ideas had one simple goal: to bring the town and the college closer together. Well, Andy, you succeeded. You were there at the inception of the Town Gown Fund in 2001 and served as a passionate member of that committee from day one. And thanks to the incredible generosity of the fund's initial supporters, as well as many of subsequent donors, the Town Gown Fund has achieved consequential and noteworthy success in line with the fund's stated goal to foster goodwill and communication between the college and the town of Clinton, sometimes the town of Kirkland and the village of Clinton. So as proof of these, let me give you some highlights. Since 2001, the fund has awarded grants totaling over $1 million, a milestone celebrated in August. There have been 154 total grants over this 20-year period. 24 local organizations, with the Clinton schools and area safety providers at the top, have benefited from Town Gown awards. The total value of the endowed fund as at June 30th was nearly $2.5 million. And this is remarkable. The number of individual donors who have given at least once to the fund is 466, which shows the breadth of support the Town Gown Fund enjoys. These are extraordinary figures, and of course will only grow, all thanks to our muse and our dreamer, Andy Burns, and those who endowed the fund. I want to close by paraphrasing a statement I made 3 years ago when I had the honor of speaking at the memorial service for our beloved Professor Bob Simon. In their 200 plus years, this small community and this small college have enjoyed many blessings. Andy Burns was truly a shared Clinton and Hamilton blessing. Thank you.
I share a lot of Andy's stories with me, and it was really something that I thought would be appropriate to recognize, excuse me. One of the things that I got out of conversations with Patty was that her experiences working with Andy on the Hockeyville were quite similar to my own experiences with Andy. And we also agreed that Andy had two qualities that struck us as really differentiating him from normal people. First of all, he was a visionary. He could see things that nobody else could see. And then when he set his eyes on a particular goal or objective, he would then take advantage of his other gift, which was a unique ability to not only influence, but to inspire all the people that he knew he needed to rely on in order for him to succeed and achieve what was originally his goal, but would very quickly become all of our goals. And Julie, you might have seen that combination play out in his personal life, and Rick probably his professional life. But I had the great privilege and pleasure to witness Andy in action when I worked with him on the Centennial Initiative from 2016 to 2018. It was really something else. In the fall of 2015, I was organizing a reunion of the guys I played hockey with here at Hamilton in the late 70s. And as I was sending an email out to give them an update, I said, I'm going to copy Andy. I know that he and Julia have moved to North Carolina, but who knows? He might want to join us. And about 5 minutes after I pressed send, I got a call from Andy. And he said, Ted, thank you. Thank you for including me. I'm thinking I might want to come up and join you guys. And here's why. So I'm going to tell a story that many of you have heard before, but I think it's worth repeating. He said, I was watching the Islanders Devils game the other night, And between periods, Stan Fissler was interviewing Nick Palmieri. And out of the blue, he says to Nick, what was it like, Nick, to have grown up in a town with as rich a hockey tradition as Clinton, New York? And Andy described his reaction, but I could picture him just jumping out of the chair and screaming at the TV saying, I grew up in Clinton, New York. I played hockey there. I don't know anything about any rich hockey history. And I don't think Andy ever heard Nick's reply. I think he went right to his laptop. He started doing research. And by the time we had our phone call a few weeks later, he had amassed an incredible amount of information about this guy, Albert Prettyman, and the origins of hockey in Clinton and in Hamilton. And he said, you know, this is all cool stuff. My challenge is I don't know what to do with it. And I'm seeking some substance and I have an idea. He said in 2000, my research, as previously mentioned, the first hockey games were played in Clinton and Hamilton in 2018. So 2 years from now, in 2018, will mark the 100-year anniversary of hockey in the town and the college. And thinking about throwing a party, have a little celebration. It would give us something to work around, give some structure, because I don't really know what to do with all this information. And I said, I've talked to some of the hockey guys in Clinton, and they seem to be on board, hockey people. And but I don't know how to approach the college. I don't know who to approach and what to say. So your reunion in a couple of months might give you an opportunity to get some feedback from Hamilton hockey people and see if this whole thing is worth pursuing. So in February of 2016, we had our reunion and we went down to Altieri's for dinner on Saturday night and went in the back room. And he set up his laptop and his projector and his screen. And after dinner, he presented to us what was nothing short of an incredible documentary on the origins of hockey in Clinton and Hamilton. We didn't know if we were watching something produced by Andy Burns or Ken Burns. It was that compelling. It was amazing. And then he said, you know, what do you guys think if we had a big celebration in 2018? And the response again was overwhelmingly positive. Andy had the validation that he was looking for to take it to the next step. And little did I know that I had just been recruited. Andy knew there was no way that I was going to miss out on something like that. And the next day, a Sunday before he left, I was thinking he might, you know, ask me to join him, but he didn't. All he said to me when he got in his car to go to the airport was, Ted, here's what we need to do next. And so it began. 2 years of meetings, 2 years of research, weekly phone calls from Andy, which consisted of Andy sharing with me the tremendous progress he had made in just a single week. He would share his cockamamie ideas about this and that, most of which became part of the program, as a matter of fact. And then occasionally he had an assignment for me. And I remember leaving most of those calls, and Patty said the same thing. We'd wonder, doesn't he have anything else to do? Does he have a job or does he work? Does he have a family? And of course, Andy had all of that and much more in spades. He just could produce at a level that was off the charts. The centennial celebration was a huge success, largely because of Andy's vision and Andy's efforts, but it was also successful due to contributions from people like you. You here at Hamilton, you know who you are, and even a greater number of people in the village, in the surrounding towns, and you know who you are as well. There were a lot of great memories that weekend. I'm sure most of you were here for that centennial in 2018. My favorite memory was piling out of the Clinton High School auditorium on that Saturday afternoon after the great speeches and the real core ceremony. And I was walking with Don Spencer, Hamilton class of '59 goalie who invented the goalie mask. And we were commenting on how we were all heading over to the Alexander Hamilton Institute. And we looked out and we didn't recognize many people and we didn't know who was Hamilton and who was Clinton. And it didn't matter. We were all blended, we were all one. And getting back to your point, Yeah, it struck me as a metaphor that we were all one and we were all heading in the same direction. And it was quite something to visualize that. On Sunday, I woke up in the house of Ben and Lori Madonia, who I haven't seen yet, and we thought it was over, but we were wrong. For many of you, the heavy lifting was just about to begin as Andy turned his attention towards Hockeyville, USA. This initiative will be a little different. You had outside interests, you had rules and deadlines, and of course you had competition. So it wasn't obvious that we had control of the outcome of this whole thing, or so we thought. I'm going to divert to reading now. Clinton won Hockeyville because the team outworked every other entry. In the 3 weeks between initial submissions and the announcement of the Final Four, Andy and the team knew they would make the finals. So they were shoo-in. So they came up with a plan. When the announcement came that Easter afternoon, they knew exactly what to roll out first. Andy's idea was to first educate hundreds and hundreds of people on what was at stake. The $150,000 grant to the arena, the NHL game, 4-day celebration. The second week was dedicated to making sure everyone knew not only how to vote, but how often to vote. There's been a lot of talk about election fraud lately. Make no mistake about it, the 1918 Hockeyville contest was rigged. And Andy was the one who rigged it. But he did so within the rules of the contest, rules that he read over and over again, and probably nobody else did in the other entries. So, moving forward here. Oh, literature. All right. As a result of those efforts, Clinton received the highest vote total ever amassed by a USA entry. Both Kraft and the NHL were terrific, of course, but they would have a lot to say about the schedule and didn't seem to show much appreciation for Andy's core request, which was to have Stan Fischler introduce the keynote speakers on that Monday night event. Although Stan would be in Israel the entire month of September, once again, Andy could envision an equally effective role for Stan. Simply have the NHL videotape him and present that at the event. After repeated requests and no response from the NHL, Andy called NBC himself. And they sent a crew over to interview Stan, and once again, Andy accomplished his goal. Not even the NHL could stop him. As you are all aware, and as great as all these events were and all accomplishments and all the great publicity for the town and for the college, and all the money that Andy helped raise for the town and the college, and all the fun we all had in doing all of this, the underlying theme of it all was to honor and remember and thank Albert Prettyman. As mentioned earlier, the Thank You Albert Prettyman logo was everywhere in our literature. It was our website. And now that Andy is with Albert, I'm sure he's pestering him every day for more information and more stories and what about this and what about that. I also believe that Albert would now like to thank Andy. In a few seconds, I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to 3, I want you all to join Albert and me in saying, thank you, Andy Burns. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Andy Burns. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Chubb Bailey, longtime friend.
There seems to be a recurring theme or two here. I feel like somebody hacked my computer. I don't have a lot of, I kind of go to the same place, but Andy had a lot of special friends, important friends, and they all have great stories and great memories. And that's what I want to share with you. I want to share one of the many stories that Andy left with me. First of all, they all started with a phone call. Mostly his, because he was so good at reaching out. Chuck, it's Andy. You got time for a brew? Moments later, I'd hear a crush in the driveway. Look out the window and see this spectacular black 1965 Lincoln Continental with white sidewalls that spoke to a different time. If it had been your driveway, you might think it was the president. Popping out, Andy would have this wry little grin on his face that said just about everything you needed to know. Who he was, what he valued, the stock that he came from. Beers in hand, the drama would begin. One wacky idea after another. Chubb, the board thinks I'm nuts. I go, Andy, I think you're nuts. We'd laugh, and then he'd continue. Chubb, I'm serious. I tell him I can't give you guys $1 million, but I can save you 10. Of course, I'm thinking, here we go. But like in other times, he would bring me around. Unlike Colgate, Hamilton did not need to spend millions of dollars on a town that was great already. But he made it clear we've got to work together. We're better together. In retrospect, I don't think any of us would trade the excitement, the camaraderie, the play, the pure joy and inspiration we all felt when his vision, his $10 million became a reality. And whether it was on the golf course, the porch, drinking a beer or two, playing ping pong in the cellar, that's what Andy did. That his experience called life was about people, family, friends, those who worked with him, clients. He loved us all. I too have a vision. It's Andy standing by the cavernous trunk of his magnificent car. It's stuffed with all his glorious memories. Everything that he cared about. Moving to the door, he looks back at me with that wry little smile, nods, and drives away. Thank you.
This is my chance to play the rendition of the choir singing Carissima. The words are in your program. You're invited to sing, I guess, if you want to, or you want to listen to the choir. But here comes Carissima.
Here is thy homestead great and glad. There is a light that crowns thy brow. Gather we close to thee again. Mother, O loving thou hast been.
Let us pray together. May the author of love bless you and keep you in that strong connectedness of love. Let us take strength from Andy's commitments to love in the many ways, as we have seen here today, that he engaged it. May we be given the grace to allow that love to nourish us, live in us, and invite others to share in that love, connecting us in a deeper way, not only to the people to whom we're already connected, but also to the ones we see as outsiders to us. May the abundant source of steadfast love give us the spirit of inclusion and thereby offer our weary world the hope and light that arises from a beautiful life like that of Andrew Burns. May the Lord of life be with you in all you are and do, and give you peace. Amen. It's my pleasure to invite my good friends George and Penny to the podium. They're in the first string hockey line here.
This concludes part one of the celebration of Andy's life. And we'd like to thank all those who helped put this together, and especially the wonderful speakers. Those are great. There are more stories, I'm sure. And we'd like to also thank everyone for coming and all those of you who are also out there on Zoom. And for part two,
The part Andy always loved the party, especially at Hamilton and especially amongst family and friends. So please join us on the south patio for food, beverage, and conversation, sharing conversation, sharing stories, and sharing memories. Thank you.